Welcome to episode 32 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. This is the 9th episode of Season 2, and I'll be joined by Sethi de Clercq. We'll chat about strategies for effectively sharing tech tips with teachers, use of video in the classroom, EdPuzzle, screencasting, back-channel chats, and eating scorpion on a stick? Ugh. Let's dig in. Wait, no, to the content, not the scorpion. That's gross. Ew.
Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Owens from the Reimagine Schools podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Welcome in Duct Tapers. Welcome to episode 32 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. My name is Jake Miller, and I am so excited to have you with me today. And I'm also excited to have Sethi de Clercq on the show today. I think you'll really enjoy our chat. You'll probably also really enjoy me pronouncing his name because I've worked so hard to get Sethi just right. I hope Sethi listens and is like, Jake nailed my name every time, I hope. I'm not. My fingers are not crossed, don't worry. My breath is not held, as you can tell because I'm talking. A few news items off the top here, though. First off, starting with episode 31, 2 weeks ago, I started offering certificates of listening, laughing, and learning. The first iteration went really well. I'd say that the response was a little lighter than I had expected, but in terms of functionality, it worked. If any of you have turned in your certificate to your school, admin, or district, I'd love to hear about the response, good or bad. I really want to know, what's going on. Are these certificates being accepted for professional development credits of whatever kind it is that your state or school or whatever requires? Anyhow, after you listen today, you can head over to Duct, D-U-C-T, tape, tape.com/certificate to claim your certificate. This episode is over an hour long, so it just might earn you over an hour of credit towards your professional development plan. And if you can get those credits, which you deserve, while listening, which you were probably doing already, that would be awesome news. That would be great, I think, because I believe that I'm learning a lot by making the show and talking to the guests on the show. So I'm assuming, at least from the feedback that I've gotten from other people, that you're learning a lot from it too, so you might as well get some credit for it. Right? You can still get the certificate for episode 31, but they're not available for the first 30 episodes. Sorry about that. Anyhow, head over to eduducttape.com/certificate to claim that certificate. You'll need the super secret code that I mention. Oh gosh, every time I have to keep saying it because it's now part of the gag, but super secret code. So when you hear me say that later, it will come with a super secret code that you will then enter at that website that I just gave you, and then you will automatically get emailed a certificate. It should come to you within a few minutes of you filling out the form, so if you don't get it, please let me know because something went wrong either on your end or on my end, and we'll get it figured out and resolved. Now, before we get to the actual learning that those certificates are for, I'd like to review our format for Season 2 and update you on how it has evolved. Regular episodes like this one that you're listening to right now come out every other Wednesday morning, and on the other Wednesdays, we have the hashtag EduDuctTape Twitter chat. The chats are from 9:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and focus on 5 questions pulled right from the previous week's episode. You certainly don't have to chat, but we'd love to have you join in. It's tons of fun and is a great way to extend our thinking about the questions from the episode and connect with other duct tapers. It's a lot of fun connecting with these people. And you know what? I feel like I should prove it to you. So in the show notes of today's episode is a link to some of the responses from last week's chat. It'll show you just how much good information is shared and just how much fun is had. I hope you'll check it out, and then I hope you'll join us next Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just for a half an hour. You won't be disappointed in yourself for doing it because it is a great time. There is, by the way, also a link in the show notes to a calendar that tells you when the chats occur and when episodes come out, so you should go check that out too. So that's 2/3 of the format of the show. Every other Wednesday we have an episode, that's the first part. The other Wednesdays we have a chat, that's the second part. But the third and final part is a new feature. Last week, I released my first mini episode. I am so grateful for all the positive feedback that I received about it. Since the reaction was so positive, I'm going to continue bringing these to you every other week. These mini episodes are recorded live on location at a conference or workshop or event, and I will then air them on those non-episode Wednesdays. So they'll come out the same day as the chats, but they're not, a 45-minute to hour-long episode like today's is. They're short. They're 10 minutes. They're 15 minutes, sometimes even less than 10 minutes and feature me chatting with someone that I grabbed at an event and got them on microphone. Last week, it was Adam Welcome from at the Teach Better 19 conference. Have you listened yet? It's a really, really, really good one. Next week, it'll be Tara Martin, author of Be Real, Educate from the Heart, and the illustrated picture book Cannonball In. That one was also recorded at Teach Better 19, so be ready for that next Wednesday morning, a mini episode of #EDU Duct Tape with Tara Martin. The best way to make sure you don't miss it is to subscribe to the show. That way, it's automatically there. You don't have to do any work. It just shows up. A little more housekeeping here. I mentioned the Twitter chat earlier, but what if you're not on Twitter? Well, there is a Duct Tapers Facebook group. We've already got about 340 Duct Tapers in there, having conversations, having fun, connecting over educational technology, education in general, and the podcast itself. And I hope that you will join too. That is, if you are a Facebook person. By the way, for every multiple of 200 that the membership count hits, so 200 members, 400 members, 600 members, and so on, I'll give away one registration in an upcoming GIF-A-Day cohort and one GIF or GIF sticker. We've already passed 200, but if you get in before we hit 400, which will hopefully happen soon, you'll have a shot to win then, and then again when we hit 600, and then again when we hit 800, and then again if someday, hopefully, fingers crossed, we hit 1,000 members in that group. But the real prize, not the prizes that I give away every 200 members, the real prize is the connections and discussions that we're already having in there. I hope that if you're a Facebooker, you will join us there. Now, what if you're not a Twitter person or a Facebook person? Well, I am also on Instagram at JakeMillerTech, and I pretty regularly share #EDU duct tape info there too. So let's connect and chat about it there if you are a Instagram person. One last little note, my ability to do all of the things that I'm doing with this show, interacting with people on Instagram, interacting with people on Facebook, interacting with people on Twitter, having a Twitter chat, putting up posts of the stuff that happened in the Twitter chat, doing all the other stuff that I'm doing on the side, having this podcast itself, sending out their certificates. It could not happen if I didn't have a group of people that were volunteering to help me. So I want to thank them right here, right now, so that they hear and know how much I appreciate them. What better week than Thanksgiving week here in the U.S. to thank these people who really have been very supportive of me and have helped me out a lot. So they are the Mighty Ducts. Get it? Mighty Ducts? Anyhow, the Mighty Ducts, thank you to them, are Pam Inabinet, Sarah Kiefer, Alex Orris, Amy Huckabee, Angela Green, Benjamin Voss, Brandy New, Dan Stitzel, David Allen, Jennifer Conti, Joshua Huff, Kimberly Wren, Lisa Marie Bennett, Matt Meyer, Melinda Vandevort, Melissa Van Heck, Molly Clodor, and Nancy Green. Thank you so much, Mighty Ducts. I appreciate you guys. Before I step up on the soapbox, let's check in on my calendar. Next Friday, December 6th, will be the first of 2 full-day workshops based off of educational duct tape at Kent State University. Full-day workshops. You think that an hour-long podcast is an experience? Try a full day of educational duct tape. I really honestly cannot wait. I was prepping the content for it recently and am so psyched about this day-long experience. I was getting excited as I was putting it all together. I'll be sharing with the attendees about educational duct tape and then supporting them as they identify a problem or need or goal of their own to focus on. Then, with support from me and their peers, they're actually going to learn how to address it and put in the time to address it. So they might say, I'm finding that I'm really not getting enough formative assessment data in my classroom, or I'm finding that my kids don't have enough ownership over their learning, or I'm finding that my kids aren't engaged, or they're not intrinsically motivated, or I'm finding that all of my students are of different ability levels, and I'm finding that some kids are waiting for my instruction to move forward and some kids are struggling to keep up with me. And so then once they identify whatever that thing is that they're working on, we will work together to help them put some plan in place using educational technology to resolve that issue, to meet that goal, or to address that problem, or solve that problem. So that's what day one of those 2 workshops will look like, where they'll actually leave with technology, knowledge, and a strategy and a plan in place to address something they feel they need to address in their classroom. I'm really pumped for that day. But then the second of those 2 days, which I'm also really pumped for, focuses for those full 6 hours on innovative uses of Flipgrid. And if you listen to last week's episode with Journée Armand, you know there are a lot of really cool ways Flipgrid can be used. So we're going to spend a whole 6 hours on learning how to use it and making plans for putting it into use in those teachers' classrooms. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. Okay, continuing with my calendar. On December 7th, I'll be one of 4 educators sharing in a free online webinar about educational technology. I come first at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time over here for me, doing my hackaroni and cheese session. After me is Tisha Poncio. Tisha, it is Poncio, right? I looked it up once, and I'm pretty sure it's Poncio. When I met you in person, I just called you Tisha. But Tisha is awesome. She's going to be sharing about her work with digital citizenship. She's really done some fantastic stuff with the students she's worked with, so I'm really excited to see that session. After her is Tamara Ferguson talking about editing and sharing instructional videos the easy way. And I saw her post one time on Twitter about this session. She said it literally is for beginners looking to use instructional videos, or people at least at a very low level. Like, you're really going to learn the basics, and maybe you already know the basics, but you're going to learn how to do it easily. And then the fourth session of those 4 hours comes from one of the most popular educational duct tape guests of all time, Mr. Tony Vincent, doing a session called Visual Revamp. And if you listen to him on the podcast back in September, or was it August? I don't know, early fall, you know that visuals are his thing, and he's very good at doing that kind of stuff. This event, all 4 of those sessions, is provided by the Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District down in Texas, but it's 100% free and 100% open to anyone in the world to attend. I'll put the link in the show notes. Please join us. It'd be great to have you as part of it that morning. Again, that's December 7th. I started off at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then there are 3 other 45-minute sessions after me. And again, details are in the show notes. More calendar stuff. I'll be in Castleberry, Texas, early in January. I'll be at OETC in Columbus in February, followed by spending Valentine's Day with teachers in Revere schools here in Ohio. I will be at WitCon in Illinois in June. Now, you notice there's a big gap between February and June with nothing that I mentioned there. There are a few things that are not quite ready to be announced just yet, but there are also a lot of open days in my schedule there. So if you have an event or are looking for some professional development in your school this spring, please reach out to me. You could find some details at jakemiller.net/speaking, or just shoot me an email. That's fine too. Finally, before we jump into the soapbox, I want to remind you to sign up for my newsletter. Subscribing guarantees that you see new #EDU GIFs before they hit Twitter. Twitter? Twitter. I always send them to the newsletter group first. By the way, if you feel like you're signed up but you haven't seen any emails from me, something's wrong, because I've sent one like almost every Wednesday for the last couple months. So if you haven't seen them, maybe go check those spam or promotion folders, or reach out to me if you can't find them, and I could double check to make sure you are in fact in that list. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. Do you know the difference between a skirt and a dress? I can't believe I'm asking that right now. Even after all of the odd, which of the following would be less torturous questions that I've asked over the last 32 episodes, that's probably in the top 5 weirdest questions so far, right? Do you know the difference between a skirt and a dress? Well, the reason that I ask is because when my wife and I were first dating, I discovered that I did not know the difference. I thought I did, but she, as girlfriends tend to do, identified my error and kindly corrected me. Maybe. I don't know. I think it was kind. One day, she came out of her room, ready to go to dinner, and I'll just say it. She looked hot. She looked smoking hot. She looked really good. Anyhow, I said to her, "Wow, you look great in that skirt." And she said, this is a dress? So I had always thought that a dress was long and a skirt was short. I didn't realize it related to the top of the garment. Oh gosh, I can't believe I'm admitting this to all of you. So she was wearing something short that day, and I thought like, oh, it's a skirt because it's short. No, it had a top attached, so it's a dress. I didn't know. I'm such a doofus. Anyhow, after she got done laughing at me and retraining me, we moved on with the night. And guess what? I have not mixed up a skirt with a dress or a dress with a skirt since. Poor Maya Angelou would have been disappointed if she knew that her name would be used alongside this story. Apologies to the memory of the great Dr. Angelou here, but it's like she once said, do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, do better. I've said that on the show before, many times actually, but I want to stress a different part of the quote this time. The second part should be an ultimatum. When you know better, do better. So once I found out the difference between a skirt and a dress, I am required to now do better. So in our work as educators, we should be doing our best. And our best doesn't have to be perfect and never will be perfect. But when we know better or know more, we must take action to start doing better. When I was a STEM teacher, for example, I used to give a lot of projects using Google Slides. I regret how little choice I gave and how often I went back to that same well. But what I really regret is how I graded those Google Slides. I made rubrics that told me to take off points if a student had 2 pictures on slide 4 instead of 3, or only had 4 bullets on slide 5, or left out a title slide at the beginning, or, gosh, an embarrassing number of things that don't relate to the actual thing that I was supposed to be assessing. And it's okay to look back in my past and see that and regret it, but it's not okay to see it again in my future. You know what I mean? Because I know better now. I have to do better now. So when we know better, we have to put in the work to do better. We won't get better with a snap of a finger, but we have to put in the work to get better. It might take time, but we need to be doing that work to get better. Like Tony Jackson said in the quote that I shared back in episode 26, being the change takes practice, not the kind that you do until it's perfect, the kind that you do because it's worth it. It's worth it. So when we know better, we must do better because it's worth it, because it's important for our kids, because it's important for our students. When you realize that you should be formatively assessing your students, or that reading logs are a detrimental process, or that homework isn't what's best for your students, or that your favorite tech tool is not having the desired effect, or that you're not hearing your students' voices, or that, well, whatever, do better. Work on doing better. It won't come right away, but we need to be taking those steps to do better. But please, by the way, don't ask me the difference between a romper and a jumper, or between leggings and yoga pants, or between blush and foundation. But if you ask me the difference between a skirt and a dress, I'll know it every time, because I know better. And now I do better.
Today's guest.
All right, today our guest is Sethi de Clercq. Sethi is passionate about technology integration and how this impacts education and student learning. He is a Google for Education certified trainer, Google innovator, and computing subject leader. He loves training in person and at events and online through his awesome YouTube channel with tips, tricks, and tutorials. You could reach out to him on Twitter at SDC Thailand, or visit his YouTube channel, Flipped Classroom Tutorials, by going to flippedtutorials.com, or check out his blog at eduflip, that's eduflip.net. And you can reach out to him too at Sethi, that's Sethi at eduflip.net. Welcome in, Sethi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you here, because I got to explain here a little bit of backstory. The way I became aware of you and the work that you're doing online was actually through something on the show we referred to as Adjacent Possible.
Yeah.
About a year ago or so, I posted what became a viral GIF about Translate in Google Sheets. And then you picked up on that, and then you made this video about it, which I'll have to make sure I put in the show notes, about applying it and really leveling it up. And that's how I became aware of you. And I was like, man, this guy creates awesome tutorials.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I remember that. That was going around. My goodness, that was going around everywhere, wasn't it?
Right. It was.
Flying around, or GIF, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Well, I want to call it a GIF. You can call it whatever you want. I won't judge you.
I was going to say, I've just started calling it GIF and GIF in every single video, just so I'm not offending anyone.
No, I offend everybody, and I say it's GIF, and you're wrong if you say GIF. But I tell people I'll still be friends with you. So when I discovered you through that tweet, when you tweeted out the video you created, then I kind of dove into your history of videos, and it looks like, from what I can tell, you put out a video pretty much weekly. Is that a goal for you to do weekly?
Yeah, the goal is really weekly, and it's either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Sort of, start of the week, something teachers can use, implement, students can use it, etc.
And it's fantastic stuff. I was just looking at your most recent ones as we're recording here, and there was one about how to use Google Slides presentations in Jamboard. There were ones about the word counter in Google Docs. Lots of stuff about Sheets, Google Sheets, stuff about pop-ups in Google Docs, which I had a GIF about that, but your video about it really gets into it and walks everybody through how to do it and how to do some really cool stuff with it. Yeah, so people should definitely check out Sethi's videos. And your production value is awesome. Are you using Camtasia for that?
I'm still using Camtasia. I'm starting to get sort of to the point where it'll probably be time soon to slowly start looking into some other stuff. But as long as I can do it within Camtasia, I'm happy to stay with that, because that's the one that I love. And that's also the one I share with students and teachers whenever they're asking sort of what's a good basic, editing tool for GIFs and GIFs and video, and then Camtasia, really, it's your go-to one.
Yeah, that's what I use, and I love it. But what I like about when you do your videos is you have, I want to just, I don't know what the best way to term this is, but it really has like a YouTube channel feel where you are literally hosting it from your desk. Like you're not just that grainy video down in the bottom right corner, like the poorly lit video. Like you have like a professional setup in there, which I envy you. I'm just in a corner of a basement next to my kid's Lego table right now. So I can't be hosting any YouTube videos right now.
Yeah, that was never. I did not plan for that. That literally it's a hobby that got out of hand. It's just
that's the best way, man. You discover something you're into.
Yeah, I know. I started with the screencasts and sort of like, but then before you know it, you're buying lights and cameras and stuff, and it just grows. And so that's what it turned into.
Yeah. So we talked about the bio when we came into it, but so you're based out of Thailand and you're in the classroom, correct? But then you're also doing this stuff on the side. Could you give us kind of the lowdown on that stuff?
Yeah. So I'm still full-time teaching. So I work at a local international school here in Bangkok. I've been there for 10 years now. I've been in Thailand for 13, at the school for about 10. So I'm still full-time teaching, but then sort of, when you come home, you know this, teachers don't stop. Like
Right.
You just keep going. You're either planning or producing content, or you're making stuff for your students. And so I decided, well, I'm already making all this stuff for colleagues, and because I'm also sort of ICT and the computing subject leader, so I'm sharing out training with other staff and teachers. And I figured, well, they're not always either present when I'm doing this training, so why not just record it and then send it to them via email? And then that grew into, well, where I'm going to host these files, so I'm going to put them on YouTube. And then I'll never forget, a friend of mine said, well, why are these unlisted videos? Just make them public, share them. Yeah. So I did that, and it just, it came from there. So now I'm, full-time teaching, and then in the evenings, I'm really working on social media and YouTube channel planning, etc. And then I'm trying to use, some of the weekends as well to do some in-person training and, attend events. And it's just, it's a bit... Yeah, it's a bit of a roller coaster, really.
Right. Yeah. Very cool, though. I like how it reminds me kind of the situation that I'm in, where you just kind of start dabbling in things, and you're like, hey, I like this, and start leveling up, and it becomes a thing. So you've got kind of a thing now. Now, so you said you've been in Thailand now for 13 years. Where are you originally from?
Originally from Belgium. That's also where I started teaching, and so I worked there for a few years. But then I decided, right, let's just do something completely different, and then literally move to the other side of the world.
Wow. How cool. Very cool, Sethi. I'm glad to have you on the show and share kind of your story and this, I don't know, your different perspective coming from literally the other side of the world. We were just talking, it is morning right now for me while we're recording, and it's night right now while you're recording. So literally the other side of the world.
Yes, definitely.
Isn't technology cool, right? Like my kids just left for school, and your kids just got in bed, and here we are live talking over the internet. Very, very cool.
Absolutely. How things have changed. I love it.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so let's have a little bit of fun. Let's play a game. We're going to play a game of 2 truths and 1 lie.
Brilliant.
2 truths and 1 lie.
You're going to give me 3 statements. One of them is going to be a lie. 2 of them are going to be true. I am going to try to guess the lie. I'm going to get it wrong, and then I'm probably gonna mess up figuring out which one is the lie, because I always mess up this game, even though it's my own game. But go ahead, and I'll see if I can get it right this time.
Okay, brilliant. So the first one, let's say I'm about 15, 16, really into sort of the skateboarding and the extreme sports. And so I decided to jump from one building to another using my deck. And then obviously things didn't quite go as I expected them to go. And I ended up in between 2 buildings, and that must have been about 2 floors or something like that. But everything's still fine, and I'm still here.
Okay.
So that's the first one.
That's pretty crazy.
I know. Well, you asked for some fun stuff, so.
Yeah, it's the truth. Yep.
The second one was 13 years ago, decided I wanted to do something different. So moved to the other side of the world, did the whole backpacking thing, lots of traveling, did all the countries around here, and then just ended up in a tiny little house and decided to stay here and just carry on teaching as I did back home. That's the second one.
Okay.
And then the third one is that while I was traveling, I discovered that scorpions on a stick are actually quite nice to eat, and that if you are willing to try it, that you might actually enjoy that.
Oh my gosh. Well, that one is freaking me out a little bit. But we know the second one is true. We know the second one's true because you did move and you did say it was 13 years ago. Unless the tiny house part is a lie, I'm going to assume that one's true. So skateboarding between two rooftops. I don't know about that one. And then eating a scorpion on a stick. I'm going to guess that the first one is your lie. You are a skateboarder, but you didn't do anything crazy like that.
I'm going to have to disappoint you. I think you've got it all wrong. Yes,
Oh, no.
It's actually the reason for moving to the other side of the world. So that was 13 years ago, but it was definitely not for the whole backpacking thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm going to have to disappoint you. I did indeed try to show off and fell in between two buildings.
Oh my gosh, broken bones?
No, nothing. I have no idea how that happened. Nothing.
Oh
Nothing.
my
I've never
gosh.
broken a bone in my in my body.
Oh, that's crazy.
And then the third one, the
And
scorpion, that's also true. I mean, yeah, if you ever come here, you can find them everywhere. So I would highly recommend that you try it out. If you can get past the sort of the cracking noise that it makes, but yeah. Definitely.
That's what I was imagining. Was an extreme cracking noise.
But then again, crisps do that as well. So.
And then is it like a meat inside?
Oh, I wouldn't call it that anymore. It's probably been on the barbecue for an awful long time. So it's just one of those things. Like you've done it once, and it's like it's okay, but I don't think I'll do it again. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. You see, I'm the kind of person that like I will try. Like if normal people are willing to do this and say it's good, I'm like, well, I'll try it. I guess like other people say it's okay. So I think if I'm ever in Thailand and I meet you and you're like, have this scorpion on a stick, I'll be like, okay, I'll take a bite. I think I would try it. That sounds something like off of Fear Factor, though, to me.
Yeah.
No, and I'm feeling a little nauseous right now just talking about it.
Look, they're all doing it. All these backpackers are eating it. There must be something to it. So.
Okay, so the lie was that you did not backpack. You just moved to Thailand.
Yes.
You did skateboard between two buildings and fell. And you did try scorpion on a stick.
Yes, so it was definitely not the backpacking. Came for a very different reason.
My stomach is crawling right now on the scorpion one. Oh, woo. Jeez, you're ruining my morning coffee right now.
Yes, well, it's night here, so I'm fine. I've had a whole day of eating and drinking, and so I'm fine.
You're all right. Nice. All right. Okay. Well, let's jump into some actual, honest educational technology now. Brilliant. We're going to do the educational duct tape thing, which for any new listeners out there is my silly metaphor that educational technology is at its best when we're using it as a tool in the classroom or in our instruction to meet a goal, address a problem, address a learning standard. So the technology is not the goal. The classroom stuff, the pedagogy, the things we're doing for our students, that's the goal. The technology is just the tool. So we have some teacher questions that we're going to address with educational technology. So our first question comes from a listener. Her name is Kathy Zandecki, and she asked, what would be the best way to communicate and share tech-related tips and content with teachers who don't even open emails or have little planning time? She said, I've tried to use Google Classroom. I've tried newsletters through Adobe Spark or through Google Newsletter templates. I've tried emails. Would love to hear some new ideas. I know, Kathy, I've wrestled with this problem too. We've got these busy teachers who maybe don't have time for the emails. And when they get to their emails, they're prioritizing an email from a parent over an email from their coworker. So how do we communicate these new and exciting things to them? So I'm curious to hear your response to this.
First of all, I think it's a brilliant question because it's something that I think we're all struggling with, especially in schools, because we've got you've always got sort of your core group that is really tech savvy and they're really excited and they try new things, and if it works in the class and if it benefits the students, they'll keep going. But then you've also got a core group that's very reluctant, and often that comes from not being very good at it. But then it's really tricky because you're trying to help them get better, but because you're trying to help them get better, they are confronted with that one thing that they're not good at, which is tech. And so there's an immediate wall that goes up.
Yeah.
So what I've found that works really, really well is just to move away from the tech in order to teach the tech. I know it sounds really, really strange, but because I did the same thing at the beginning. I made a Google Classroom and newsletters, and then I started sort of sending digests and emails and tips and tricks and sending them links of like really great Twitter posts and stuff. And it wasn't really happening until I decided, right, look, they really, these teachers they're not bad teachers. They're incredibly motivated teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not their medium.
Mm-hmm.
They want to use different things. So I decided, right, let's just go with plain old paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this thing going around, I think again, Twitter, where there was this guy that was doing similar things and he was calling it potty PD.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going up into the toilets,
Mm-hmm.
into the cubicles. And there was like little A4 paper went up with like just one quick tip. Just
Mm-hmm.
a quick little thing. Did you know that you can right click on a folder in Google Drive and change its color? And that was it.
Yeah.
Nobody's forcing you to open an email. Nobody's forcing you to try it, but it's there and you see it, every day you see it. And after 5 days, there was something new up. And then again, something different and something different. So we started doing that and started leaving little clues around, like in the staff room, on the table and, on another table and on a door and left and right. And then you sort of started getting questions from those people that usually aren't interested.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you sort of leave at the bottom, you want to find out more, just come and speak to me. And they knew who was putting these things up. Like,
right.
They'll know. You start putting them up, they'll know it's you. But then they'll come and they'll actually start talking to you and they'll say, well, I saw this thing that you put up and how do you do that? And then that's where I started using video. Or in your case, like what you're doing with, with your GIFs, it's
mm-hmm.
brilliant.
Right.
It's quick, it's easy, it's super fast to share. That would then be the follow-up.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I agree. It's got to be the follow-up, though.
Yeah, but not the initial one.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's the initial one, you're already bouncing off that wall.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because, and I hadn't even thought about this as I was kind of preparing mentally my answer, is the fact that if we're trying to communicate with people who aren't necessarily comfortable with technology, maybe we shouldn't be using technology to communicate with them. I had an issue in my own day job where these GIFs and things like that I share out on Twitter and on my website weren't receiving a big reaction from the staff that I worked with, not all of them at least. And I think it's because of what you're saying here. The people that are on Twitter love the GIFs that I share, because they're already like, this is a self-selected sample here. They're people who are on Twitter. Like, obviously they have some level of comfort with technology, that they're on Twitter accessing these tweets. And so they're seeing these GIFs. And I think you're right. Somebody who's not necessarily of that mindset, even though it's not that they don't want to learn, they're just not comfortable with that type of learning. Doing something paper-based or in person makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And I also I like what you were saying there too about doing it in different places and in different ways, because that's what I wanted to talk about is, you're saying, okay, we're going to put it on paper. Maybe we're going to put it in your mailboxes. Maybe we're also going to put it up in the bathroom doing potty PD. Maybe we're also going to throw it in the staff lounge. We're going to try different venues to try to reach all of the people we need to reach. Maybe we also send a digital version out. So maybe the email still goes, because that email is reaching 40, 50, 60% of your colleagues. It's just not reaching 100. So you've got to kind of hit it a bunch of different ways to hit them all. Well,
it's the same with our students. They're all different. So we differentiate our lessons. We don't just teach the same thing to everyone. Right. That would just be, a waste of time. So in order to differentiate, I think we need to do the same with our colleagues and with friends. And not everyone enjoys receiving information the same way. Like, I love Twitter. I love Twitter, but I use Twitter as my main source of sort of new ideas and information. But that's taken a long time to develop. It's taken time. You need to follow the right accounts and the right people, and the right others just read books and they're just reading all day long. And that's where they get their information from. And I think what you're saying about having it everywhere and like different places and in different formats. Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Because we're all different. And it's trying to reach everyone is impossible if you're only using one format or one medium. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And that it goes back to that, I don't know who's originally quoted with it. I want to say it was Ben Franklin, but I'm not going to look it up right now. But doing the same thing over and over again the same way and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And so here we are. We all know this. Anybody that's listening that's a tech leader or a coach or an admin and is trying to communicate things with their staff, and we know that everything we try only reaches a portion of our population we're trying to reach. And yet we continue to do that expecting different results. And so I think what we have to do, as you're saying, is try different approaches until you grab your whole audience. And it's kind of crazy that we differentiate for our students, yet we expect our teachers to assimilate to one way of doing things, and then we're surprised when it doesn't work out. And I'm guilty of this too. You send out that email, and you're like, "Why isn't everybody reading the email?"
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've done it. I've done it plenty of times.
Right. And we need to just stop saying. We need to realize, like, we know everybody's not going to read that email. So instead of just complaining about it, we need to find a different way to reach them. And so I think doing something like preparing maybe one of those newsletters like Kathy mentioned, like maybe let's say we use Adobe Spark to make the newsletter, and then we also email it out, and then we also put it on this Google Classroom so that they can go back and get them later. And then we also print it out and hang it up in the bathroom. And then we also put it in their mailboxes. And then we also mention it at the staff meeting. If we hit them in all of the different places, sooner or later, we're going to get 100% of our audience to hear our message that we're sharing with them.
Absolutely.
But the other thing we've got to think about too is we've got to keep the value high. It's got to be high impact, high value stuff that we're sharing out. And that's different for different staffs, different groups, different people. You've got to make sure that the stuff that you're sharing, they're going to value, because if they start to learn, like, okay, he's shared out 3 different things with me and none of them have been valuable to me, it all just becomes noise from here on out, and I'm not going to listen anymore. Like, you've got to keep bringing value.
Yeah, that's the thing, because especially if you're sort of, because I'm not thinking back to sort of my school in particular. I mean, we've literally got teachers all the way from early years up to secondary, so they need very different things. They use very different things, and it's just making it visual has proven to be very effective. So they've sort of started to, because what you're saying is like, they start, blocking it, or they just start ignoring it when it hasn't had value. So what we've been trying to do is sort of make it very visual, like different colors and bold borders that kind of highlights who it's aimed at. So for example, you have bright yellow borders. That's more of an early years Key Stage 1 sort of tip trick, something with younger students. Then there's sort of something green is more admin, something blue. Okay, might be more for subject specialists. And so having those little, eventually people start picking up on that, and they'll see something yellow and say, oh, that might be something for me. So we've tried that, and that seemed to work. But I think another thing that's really important, and like we as teachers, we expect all our students to have a growth mindset, right? So we want them to, keep on trying and be resilient. And so I think it's important for us to also reflect that. And as tech integrators, when we're trying things, so let's say that you're trying those borders, if it doesn't work, don't be afraid to just stop doing it, get rid of it and try something new. Because that's a mistake I've made often, is sort of saying, well, I'm trying this now, and I want to keep trying this, and I want to, and not being willing to let go and say, okay, it's not working, out the door, try something new.
How do you know when that time has come? How do you know? Like, because if you send it out once in one format, whatever it might be that you're doing, and you don't see any results, it's probably too soon to abandon it. How do you know when it's hit the point where you have enough information to know that this strategy, whatever it is that you're doing, isn't successful?
Yeah, see, that's where I'm really thankful we're in a sort of a smaller school. So we can literally say the teachers at our school, we know every single child, we know each other. So you're constantly bumping into each other, and you can hear it. You hear the grumbles, and you hear the sort of, oh yeah, another email, and so it's not always about you, but it's sometimes about other people as well. And so usually it's pretty easy to pick up on the fact that they're not happy about something, because if there's one thing teachers like to do, it's complain. That's just one thing that, I think it's all of us, because you're walking around, you're doing a whole day of teaching, and you're really tired, and there's a lot of grumbles. So you will hear sort of the little things like, oh yeah, no, another post-it. And so you start picking up on that. And then if you do take something away, and that's where you really see when people start valuing it, because you'll remove something for, let's say that you stop doing it for 1 or 2 weeks. There's a good chance people will ask for it if they actually did enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think there's two parts to take away from what you're saying there. One is, in order to decide that it's time to take something away, you need to have some actual like observational information to tell you that it needs to be taken away. You can't just go like, I've sent out this email format 3 times and nobody has responded and said that they value this or anything. That might not mean anything if just that it's nobody's coming to you. You want some actual observed patterns of them not being pleased with it. That makes sense.
Well, that's, I think, where being visual is important. Like if you're walking around the school and like, let's say that you've sent something out about Adobe Spark and how it can be used by students. And then the next week or the next, 2 weeks, you're walking around those hallways and you start seeing things up that were created with Adobe Spark. That's an observable impact that has had, because that's something that wasn't there prior to you sharing. So then that's something you can take away with, you can take away and can say, okay, this actually did impact someone. And then that person is now impacting students. Let's give it a bit more time.
Yeah, I used to work with a tech coach who was sharing about a particular tool over and over again in these kinds of communications like we're talking about, and wasn't getting any, it was like they were putting their fishing line in the water and they weren't getting any bites on it. And nobody was saying, hey, yeah, I want to use this, or hey, come in and help me use it. And then observed later that somebody was using the tool and then was offended that they hadn't come to them about it. And I think if your goal is you want the person to use Adobe Spark, like in your example, and they start using it, like you just gotta be happy. Like you met your goal with that teacher, whether or not they included you in the process, they took to it. They have accepted this and your goal is met.
Exactly. It's not about you. It's the same with your students. I mean, if they're starting to use a technique or something that you've taught them, you're not there for the credit. Like you're not doing that so that they would say, oh yeah, it was, so-and-so taught me this. No. They've got this now.
Right.
And like, that is the reward. Otherwise, why are we teaching? Like, that's the reward, is the fact that they've gone off and done something.
Right. That's a good point. We need to look at it kind of the way we look at it from the classroom. Like if you're a math teacher and you see your kids multiplying correctly, you're not expecting them to come back and say, hey, man, thanks for teaching me how to multiply. Like you just go, great, I taught it, they get it, right?
Exactly.
Right. So maybe that's a more realistic way of thinking about it. I like that. Good points there. Some good value there. I think some good stuff for people to kind of take home in those positions. Because we find that a lot of the listeners are people in these kinds of roles where whether it's their actual position or just something they've kind of taken on, they're a tech leader in their educational communities, and it's good information for them to hear there. So let's jump on to a more classroom focused question. So that one was very focused on the teacher themselves. Now let's talk about more student focused. So I think you have a question going for this one here.
Yeah. So I wanted to have just a quick chat, and this is coming really from sort of one of my passion projects, and it's always been video. So I wanted to look at how we can leverage the power of video to really impact student learning.
So what I want to share about kind of in my response here is the tool EdPuzzle. For listeners who don't know EdPuzzle, which it's pretty commonly known, so I bet most people know about it. But if you don't, what EdPuzzle does is you take pretty much any video. It could be a video you made yourself, or it could be a video that's available on YouTube or a handful of other sites. And you could then embed questions into that video. And then what's nice is then after the students have gone through, you get, number one, their responses to the questions that you embedded in. So you're actually checking for understanding that way and doing a formative assessment that way. But you're also proving that they watched it, which sometimes we need to do that and make sure they're actually watching the video you're putting out there. So that's how you're making sure that power of video is getting to the students. Funny story, the way that I started using this was actually years ago when I was a STEM teacher, and I told this story back in the first season of the podcast, so I'm going to relive it because it always makes me laugh. I was putting out a lot of videos in the class, and it was part of the instruction of how the students got the information because it was a student-paced course. They all moved at their own pace. And this kid came up to me and, long story short, asked me a question that proved to me that he had not watched the video. I could tell he didn't watch the video. And so I questioned him about the video. Now, I recalled that in this particular video, I had a beard at the time in the video, but not that day that I was talking to the student. I did not have a beard. And I was wearing glasses in the video. But at this point in class, I'm not wearing glasses. So I asked the kid, what did I look like in the video? Thinking he's going to say, well, if he was right, he would say you had glasses and a beard. If he was wrong, he'd say you look like you look now. And his response was, you looked handsome, which is the best response I've ever gotten from a student. You look handsome. But so anyhow, I learned as I went through this situation with this kiddo that I needed to embed some way to make sure the kids were watching the video.
Yeah.
And so I used, well, actually at the time I was using a tool called Zaption, which went away years ago. So now if I was reliving that experience, I would be using EdPuzzle to do it myself. But one thing I like EdPuzzle, and if I were in the classroom today, I would be using EdPuzzle. One thing that I don't like about my solution was that I was doing a compliance-based way of getting the kids to use the video, right? I wasn't empowering them to use the video. I was more it was forced compliance. And I don't know what the perfect solution to that is. That's kind of just my reflection on it. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on using the power of video in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest struggle I think we often hear is sort of video is still sometimes considered the big bad wolf. I think a lot of people are still a bit fearful, especially YouTube. YouTube is just, a lot of people consider YouTube a scary place, especially when linked to education. Whereas I think it's such an incredibly powerful platform to have for both students and teachers. And just linking back to what you were saying, like EdPuzzle, I love EdPuzzle. EdPuzzle is an incredibly useful tool when used correctly. And again, it's like with everything, when you're playing Kahoot quizzes, if you do too many, it becomes dull and it loses its power. If you do one, from time to time, then that can be a huge motivator. And I think EdPuzzle is the same. If you overuse it, it will become a drag. But back to video, I think every student and every teacher should be a creator, because the only way that you're going to take away this fear and this feeling of video and YouTube being a big bad wolf is if we get more professionals creating. So I would like any teacher listening, any student listening, any parent, just start creating, start sharing your content, start doing what you are already doing because you're an expert in that field, and just share that with the world. Because I think what we've got now in terms of the ease of recording and the ease of sharing is so incredibly powerful. And so my main thing would be the screencasting, how easy it's become to screencast something, even if it's just to demonstrate that you've really understood something, or to quickly ask a question, or tools like Flipgrid, where you can have a question that's sent out and then people respond in their own time. And I think the way that video has become this tool that is now easily accessible, I think that really impacts our students' learning if we use it correctly and if we're not overusing it. And I think that's key. I think we need to be very careful about using it too often and too long. So like in my class, for example, I'll never use a video longer than 2 minutes. And why is that?
Yeah.
Because that's not the lesson. The lesson is all about collaboration. It's about the students talking to each other, working together, and figuring, problem solving and doing all that, not watching a video. That video is there, and they can watch it in their own time. And if they want to rewatch it at home, which they often do, they can. But once it gets too long, I think it loses its power. So for me, it would be to make sure that they become creators. 1, 2, that they're given the tools that allow them to create. I think that's key. So, for example, many districts and schools are blocking YouTube, and I can see where that's coming from. But I think it's much more powerful to have a solid digital citizenship curriculum in place that teaches them how to navigate the internet safely rather than blocking it. And then keeping those videos short, keep them short, keep them, to the point.
Yeah. So I like that you're thinking about, first of all, the video short thing, like 2 minutes, that's such a hard goal to hit, but I think that's accurate. As I reflect back on that video that I used the EdPuzzle with, that was a 15-minute long video. And in my mind at the time, I was thinking, I knew the kids weren't consistently watching a video when it was that long, but in my mind, I was just kind of student blaming. I was going like, they'll listen to a teacher give a 30-minute long lecture, but they won't listen to my 15-minute long video. What's wrong with them? But then as you step back from it, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier. If they're not going to watch it, you've got to stop blaming them for it because you can't, that's not going to fix it. You've just got to do something different. Like if they won't watch a 15-minute long video, don't make a 15-minute long video and then complain about it. Make a shorter video. Like you've got to find a way to do it. But I also like your recommendation there, which essentially what you're saying is anything more than 2 minutes means that the kids are not involved enough in the learning process, right? So you're trying to dictate to them too much information, and that's really it's almost like a teaching practice thing. It's like 20 years ago, if I realized that I was lecturing for a half an hour, then it's not a problem as to whether technically 30 minutes is too long or not. Really what the problem is you're not involving the kids enough in the learning, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're realistically thinking, like what sort of online web shows are our students, I'm talking sort of like tweens and teens, and what are they watching? Well, it's live streaming where there's a chat going on, where people are interacting. They'll happily watch that for an hour. Is it because that guy's playing something for an hour or explaining something for an hour? No, it's because they're interacting with all the other viewers, and they're interacting with
that's a good point,
with everyone else. That's why these platforms like Twitch and like the streaming on YouTube, that's why it's so powerful and why they love it, because there is interaction, they're engaged. That's how our classroom should be as well. Whenever we're using video, it should be an interactive place where people can ask questions and get answers and exchange ideas and collaborate and all those, beautiful things.
Yeah, I like that point a lot, because that is true of a lot of what they're enjoying watching on YouTube, is that there is an interaction piece involved. It's not true with all of the stuff they're watching, but that certainly is true with a lot of stuff they're excited about. So how would you build that in your classroom? So let's say you have a video to share with your class and it just needs to be 10 minutes long. There's nothing you could do about it. It's got to be 10 minutes long. You've identified that this video is the best way to do it, but you know that they're not going to stay focused on a 10-minute long video, but you know that interaction will build it in. So how would you do that? What would you use to do that?
Well, there's a range of different things. Like if you're going to use the video in a flipped classroom scenario where you're not in the class and it is, your students watching it at home, then I would definitely make sure that wherever you're choosing to share that video, that you're present for about an hour. Let's say that you're sharing that video with your students, and realistically they'll be doing the work, let's say between 5 and 7. That, well, just be online, be in that classroom, be in that platform, be in the chat room, be in, if you're sharing the video via Google Slides, be in that Google Slides and just leave a little text box so they can see, oh, my teacher's in here, I can ask questions, I can leave a comment. That's one thing. That's when you're sort of flipping it.
That's a good point.
On the other hand, if you're going to use that video in class, well, first of all, if it's a video where you're going to explain something for 10 minutes, well, why use the video and why aren't you explaining it? That would be the first question.
Right.
On the other hand, I would probably pop it into a Google Slide, set a beginning and end time, break it up into smaller bits, copy it over so that you can have multiple little slices of 10 minutes, and then mute the audio. Do the explaining myself, ask lots of questions in between, and just move from slide to slide where it automatically plays the next minute and break it up into 10 sections of 1 minute.
That's a great point. So to kind of fill in any listeners that aren't familiar with that process, what Sethi is saying here is to take, if you insert a video into Google Slides and I think you right click on it, and then video options is an option there. One of the options there is what time you want the video to start at and what time we want the video to end at. So maybe if it's a 10-minute long video, the first slide is minute 0 all the way up to minute 2, and then on the second slide it's minute 2 to minute 4, and then but you break it up based on whatever spots you want to have discussion going on. But that's a great idea to chunk it so that it's really not one 10-minute video. It's 5 2-minute videos or 10 1-minute video, whatever it might be.
Yeah. And then another thing that I was just thinking now that you're saying that is what I've sometimes put video onto a Google Sites and then sort of published at Google Sites, because when you're publishing in Google Sites, you can publish it within your domain as well. But then there's this great extension. I don't know if you've used it, Insert Learning.
Oh yeah, I haven't used it, but I've heard of it. That's a great one to bring up.
So Insert Learning, you can take any website that's publicly available and you can turn it into a lesson. So you can pop questions in between paragraphs, and you can have little notes and extra links and extra information and prompts and multiple choice. And it's just such an incredibly powerful, extension to use. You can combine that with your own videos on your own Google Sites, and then you've got a ready to go lesson online and others can access it as well. Now, you can use Insert Learning with other websites as well. Let's say that you're going to the National Geographic and you've got an amazing video and it's already all there on their website. No need to copy anything. Just use Insert Learning and turn that website into a lesson.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So when you put it on the site, I'm just trying to picture putting a video on a site. Can you set the start and end times of the video too?
That's tricky. So what you can do, and again, this is this would be another workaround, is you'd embed a Google Slides onto a Google Slides, and on that Google Slides you've got a video. But in terms of sort of creating easy to use websites, I think Google Sites is brilliant. You can have your video hosted on Drive if you don't feel comfortable about YouTube, or if YouTube is blocked, just have them on Drive. It's the same engine. It works just as well. And yes, students, I mean, they love using it.
Yeah.
So I think that's key.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. And I think there's a lot of different ways we can go about that idea. This is the kind of the educational duct tape thing where, one teacher might go, yeah, I love sites too. I'm going to put my video on sites. I'm going to use Insert Learning to put questions in there. I think that's a phenomenal idea. Other teachers might go like, yeah, I don't want to use Insert Learning, or I don't want to make a website. So maybe instead they break it up on slides, and in between the slides, they ask questions, and maybe they send those docs, those slideshows out, via Google Classroom or something, so the students respond. Or maybe they embed the videos. There's a hack to embed videos into a Google Doc. And so maybe they embed them into the doc and ask questions in the middle of the doc. Today's super secret code is Scorpion. Go to eduducttape.com/certificate and type in Scorpion. One other thing that I would do, kind of the way you were thinking with the videos the kids watch on YouTube with the interaction going on in there, is to play the video in class and to use a back channel chat kind of tool. Like backchannelchat.com is one, and then Yo Teach is the name of another one. But you could use those two to have the students actually communicating while they're viewing the video. Now that's if they're watching it synchronously, is the problem there.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Back channels are amazing. I mean, I remember, a couple of years ago when we were doing a back channel, literally it was just on during the lessons. And the channel would be open for a full hour. And then at the end of the lesson, the channel would close down, and I got a transcript. And it was just like, once you've got your students used to that, they actually, like, a lot of teachers would be scared to use it because at times I've even had anonymous back channels, but as a teacher, it gives me instant feedback about what's going on in the classroom. If a student types in that back channel, oh, this is dull, I'm falling asleep, well, then maybe I need to mix it up a bit.
Right.
And it instantly tells you, right, I need to change something, because we as teachers, we're always giving feedback, but how often are we actually asking for feedback?
Right. Right.
So this back channel is having a back channel during your lessons. Why not? Just try it.
Yeah. Well, and I think what you're saying there is important, is that then you've got to listen to that feedback, right? Because normally, like I think years ago, my reaction to that student saying it's dull and boring would be to think, well, this student is rude and impolite. But really what I need to think is, oh gosh, is it boring? Is it dull? Like, and I better make it better, because whether or not the student should say that, which I think they probably should, because we want that feedback, but whether or not they should, we need to listen to it. We need to take that to heart and figure out what we can do to engage and empower the student with our content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the process of the idea of having students create videos. So there's two different parts here. There's leveraging ways to use video to communicate with the kids and to teach the kids, but there's also them creating video. What different tools would you recommend using? And maybe if it's different, like at what age levels would you use them?
I would start with just basic screencasting. When you're thinking about very young children, they can do this on an iPad. They can draw something. They can voice record on the iPad. It's got built-in tools. It's very easy to use. Then further up, when you're sort of thinking about students that have access to Chromebooks, or they have access to their own G Suite and things like that, there are certain extensions that can be pushed out. Now, there are premium options, free options. There's loads available. And these allow you to very easily screen record. And screen recording is becoming incredibly easy. If you're on a Windows device, you've got the game mechanics. Like, there's a whole game setup that you can use to record your screen. You've got the ease of recording your screen with QuickTime on Mac. It's not a hurdle anymore. And you no longer have to purchase very expensive software in order to do it. You can do it free.
So we were talking earlier about using Camtasia, which Camtasia is phenomenal on Mac or PC. You can't use it on a Chromebook or on an well, actually you can kind of use it on an iPad. You then have to edit the video on Camtasia, but that is not incredibly expensive, but is a has a price with it, relatively expensive for the classroom.
Yeah.
You mentioned QuickTime on Mac, which would be free in that situation. What was the one on PC you were talking about? The game recording one?
Yeah, it's part of the when you press the Windows key and G, you come into their sort of gaming, and it's really focused at gamers and streamers, but you can use it to record your screen.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's their answer to QuickTime on Mac, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Something free to do, right? That's already built in there. What would you use on iPad if they're creating these recordings?
On the iPad, well, we prefer to use Explain Everything, which again, Explain Everything, it is not necessarily free, but it's just so incredibly powerful for students. It allows them to draw and then record their voices, but there's other things that you can use as well. You can use the built-in screen recorder as well that you can turn on in settings. If you want to just have a simple demonstration of what they're doing, then you can use that. There's literally hundreds of different tools out there.
Yeah. So that built-in screen recorder just got added to the Apple iOS probably, within the last year or so, and it's a phenomenal addition in there. And so that would be one kind of free without adding another tool way to do it. You could have the kids maybe drawing in the Google Keep app or something like that. Yeah. And then recording with the screen recorder. But Explain Everything really lends itself to doing that. And it's a freemium, right? You can use it for free, and then there's different paid features too. And what's your favorite on the Chromebook?
On the Chromebook, definitely Nimbus Screen Recorder. Nimbus Screen Recorder is both a screenshot and screen recorder. It is incredibly powerful. The free version has there's no limit to the time, and there's no watermark. So if that's important to you, that's a really good one to have. The premium allows you to record in HD. So that's the biggest difference. Then the other one that I've got installed on literally every single one of my accounts is Loom. Loom is another video recorder. Again, you can use your webcam, your microphone, everything can be recorded, and it's an extension. It just runs within Chrome, and it's just, it does everything you need it to do. The only limitations with these two tools are the editing. So it is a very basic, you're screen recording, explaining something, and that's it. You get your video file. There is very, very limited editing. Apart from the trimming, that is it.
Yeah. Now, one thing I like to point out when people complain about the editing tools not being there is if our goal is really just to check for student understanding,
absolutely,
then we don't need them to edit, and right? The difference is if they're trying to create some kind of product that they're going to display globally or to students outside of their classroom, then we want them to be able to edit, and then we're going to look into different tools.
Exactly. And that's where Nimbus and Loom, the no time limitations, because sometimes we've got students, they need longer than 10 minutes. Like there's loads of screen recorders and Screencastify and Screencast-O-Matic and also many of the different ones, but often there's a time limit. And both Loom and Nimbus, for as far as I'm aware, their free version has no limit. And
is that your main reason to choosing Nimbus or Loom over the other ones?
Nimbus, the main reason to choose Nimbus is also because of the capture functionality with screenshots. So it allows you to have all sorts of
so you like that it gives you both tools in one.
Yes, it's both in one. You're able to annotate as well after having done the screen captures, and you can capture entire websites by scrolling down, and it's very easy to use.
Okay. If you're going to do a video project with students, how do you decide between, since Nimbus and Loom you said are the two you use, how do you decide between the two of those?
We have them both installed, and I let them choose. I think it's important for students to have the freedom. Again, if they feel more comfortable using Explain Everything on an iPad, then by all means use that one. It is whatever works for you, because I'm not there to see how you're using a tool or how you're using the tech. Right. I want to see it. Did you actually understand what we talked about? Did you get the content rather than the tool?
Absolutely. That's a perfect thing to end on, Sethi, because that really is what we're trying to talk about, right? Is viewing the technology as a tool for the learning. So it doesn't matter what the technology is, as long as the learning is happening. So you want to use Explain Everything, you want to use the built-in screen recorder, you want to use Nimbus, you want to use Loom, you want to use Screencastify. We don't care. What we care about is the learning that comes out of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's perfect. Okay, so Sethi, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to repeat his contact information for everybody out there, because now they're like, this guy's awesome. I got to go follow him and everything, right?
Thank you.
So you can find Sethi on Twitter at SDC Thailand, or you got to check out his YouTube channel. His videos are such high quality. It's Flipped Classroom Tutorials, and you can go to flippedtutorials.com to go jump right to that YouTube channel. Or all of those videos are also posted on Sethi's blog, which is eduflip.net, eduflip.net. Sethi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
It was so great having Sethi on the show today. I've been watching his stuff on Twitter and his videos and his tutorials and things like that, and he's just really doing great work. So I hope you guys are going to all go out there and follow him. And he really shared some great insights and some great information on the show. But now we're done with Sethi and we're done hearing from me. Now it's time to hear from the Duct Tapers. It's time to hear from you. So first off, our Apple Podcast review of the week comes from Kimberly Wren. At least I think it's you, Kimberly. It was KWren18, I think. And the review is titled Excellent Information. Since discovering EDU duct tape, I've learned a great deal to enhance my classroom. Students have been using the ideas I hear here to create and communicate. You are so missing out if you are not listening. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for this. I really, really appreciate this review. Next up, let's hop over to the Educational Duct Tape Flipgrid grid and hear from Michael Brilla, who has a question for all of us. So I'd like to see if some of you maybe have an answer for Michael, something you can help him out with here.
Hey, Jake and educational duct tape community. My name is Mike Brilla. I'm a TOSA, a teacher on special assignment in southeastern Pennsylvania. I have a quick question. I'm in a middle school. You might hear the kids running around. But I have a couple teachers who want to use Bitmoji or some sort of avatar in their classroom. As a middle school, a lot of our students, their parents, rightfully so, have their phones on lockdown, and I love it. So adding a Bitmoji isn't as simple as just downloading the app and creating one. So I was wondering if you have any suggestions for other alternatives than Bitmoji, something that a middle schooler could do to create their own avatar online. So I think you've talked about stuff before online on Twitter, and I just having trouble. I'm drawing a blank right now, so I'm trying to use the Flipgrid, get my voice out there. Thanks for any help you can give me.
Thank you for that question, Michael. Thanks for being a part of the Duct Taper community and for asking that question. So I'm hoping you guys could help Michael out. And here, the best way to do it is in the show notes is a link to this actual Flipgrid submission. You can click on it and you could respond to him directly if you have a suggestion for him. So I actually get this question really, really often on Twitter. People just reach out to me and ask me if I know a solution to this. And I really don't know a perfect solution. So I'm hoping somebody comes back with a really good one. The two things that I normally suggest is a post that Matt Miller has on his website, ditchthattextbook.com, that goes through how to use your own Bitmoji account to create Bitmojis for your students. It's a time-consuming process, but it's safer than having the students do it themselves. The other thing that I normally share is a listicle by Ryan O'Donnell. If you don't follow Ryan on Twitter, it's Creative Ed Tech, and he creates these infographics with a list of different tools based around a certain topic, and he has one about making avatars. So that would kind of work. It's not actually Bitmojis, it's avatars, but different, profile pictures. So if anybody has a response that could help out Michael and help out the rest of us too, please click that link in the show notes and respond to him. And then in a future episode, I'll share any responses that we get so everybody can hear from them. Okay, now let's hop over to the hashtag EDU duct tape on Twitter and talk about some of my favorite hashtag EDU duct tape tweets from the last fortnight, the last 2 weeks since the last episode came out. The first one, this one I'm going to laugh while I say it, comes from my buddy at Manny Discotech, Manny Curiel down in the Houston, Texas area, in response to the last full episode with Journée Armand. His... Manny, crack me up, man. His tweet said, what? At Savvy_educator from Flipgrid is on JakeMillerTech's hashtag EDU duct tape. Hold my poodle. I'm going to be right back. I did not know this hold my poodle reference, man. It definitely caught me off guard there, but he sent back a gif of it. I think it was from the movie Clueless. I'm not sure, but you cracked me up with this one. I'm now, for now and ever, I'm going to use hold my poodle whenever I can in conversation. Next one comes from at Mrs. J. Hartman. Jillian said, soundtrack while grading papers today? Just a little hashtag EDU duct tape podcast with one of my fave educators at Savvy_educator. Great guest pick at JakeMillerTech. Happy I stumbled across your podcast yesterday. And Jillian, I am happy that you stumbled across the podcast too, because that was a great episode with Journée. And also we've got a lot of other good stuff in store for you. And we are glad to have you in as a duct taper. Jillian, I often say some people call their podcasts or their shows binge-worthy. I call my podcast stumble-worthy. It is worth a stumble. Like you could stumble your way onto the podcast and tune in. And then maybe it becomes binge-worthy, but it's definitely stumble-worthy. Hashtag stumble-worthy. Let's make that trend along with hashtag EDU duct tape. All Our next tweet comes from at Mrs. Payton First. My buddy Missy says, thanks at JakeMillerTech for the hashtag EDU duct tape certificate of learning, listening, and laughing. Great show with Savvy_educator about all the awesomeness of Flipgrid. It really was laughing when you bust in with your super secret code. I laughed out loud and almost spit out my coffee. Missy, this is a great reminder that I now need to go back in the episode and add in that super secret code so that people can get their certificates of learning, listening, and laughing. Make sure you guys go to eduducttape.com/certificate to get yours. And I'm going to pause right now, and I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to go back and add in that super secret code right now. Okay, I'm back. The code has been added. And now a couple more hashtag EDU duct tape tweets. Next one comes from at 54 Mr. Meyer, our buddy Matt. He said, Juliana or Juliana? Matt, you'll have to fill me in on that. And I are looking forward to our first hashtag EDU duct tape chat with at JakeMillerTech and at Savvy_educator tomorrow night. Hashtag new duct taper. And there's a picture attached of Matt with an adorable little baby girl who tried to stay up for the hashtag EDU duct tape chat but failed. She fell asleep. But she looked adorable while she was doing it. Up next is at Kiefer SJ. Sarah says, JakeMillerTech, I had to play catch up with episodes 30 and episode 31 of hashtag EDU duct tape. I loved the soapbox message about the hardware store. I thought it was excellent. I don't need a drill bit. I need a, and then Sarah put in the emoji of a hole. I did not know there was an emoji of a hole. So I'm literally just sharing this with you so that you know there's an emoji of a hole. You'll have to click on the link in the show notes to her tweet and check out the emoji. I had no idea it was there. And finally, at Math Wits, our friend Carla said, hey, at JakeMillerTech, this is my brother in Quadrant 1 and his dorky friend. So I'm aside here. There's a link to a video of the beginning of a online kind of, I guess it's kind of like a video podcast or a webinar or a video chat. I'm not really sure what to call it. But in the first quadrant, Quadrant 1, is her brother, along with 3 other people in other quadrants. And as the show is starting, their music is playing and they're all dancing to it. And she said, because of them, I picture you boogieing during the theme song to hashtag EDU duct tape. Do you? Well, Carla, you'll never know. We'll just keep my dance moves a secret. Now that I've admitted my inability to know the difference between a skirt and a dress, I don't think I have to tell you whether I'm dancing as the show begins. But I think everybody should probably picture me dancing during that part. Up next, let's jump back over to the Flipgrid grid for the show and hear from Linda Hummer. I've got to say, I met Linda about a month ago at My Google in Michigan, and it was so funny. I was talking to her, and I said, I feel like I recognize you from somewhere. And she said, from the Flipgrid for your show. And I was like, oh my gosh, Linda! Which is so cool. But this is a story that Linda wanted to share about something that she tried out in her classroom based on something she heard about on the show.
Hi, Jake and other duct tapers. After listening to last week's show with Tony Vincent and his idea of using Google Slides to get to know his students better, I went in and I created a template that was about the size of a bookmarker, and one of the objects was to replace the image. And I had my 4th grade students learn how to use their Chromebook to take a picture and replace that image. Then they colored the background of it and then came up with 6 more pieces of information to tell me about them. We generated some possible topics. They learned either to use word art or how to insert other images. And there were times that they needed to use the bring to front or send to back. So they were learning some skills there. I intend to use these instead of popsicle sticks when I would randomly draw to find an answer for something. This will help me because I teach all K through 4 students, and unfortunately, I only see them 40 minutes once a week. So I'm hoping to use this method to learn their names a little bit faster. The idea then spread to next year. My principal wondered if we could do the same thing to help the bus drivers learn the kindergarten students' names because often they don't speak up. So we are going to create some of the same things with their name and their picture on it so the bus driver knows when to let them off the bus. Thanks for the great ideas. Keep them coming.
I love that idea, Linda. Thank you for sharing that. It's so cool seeing the adjacent possible happen there, how she took the idea that Tony shared and it became her idea, and then the administrator took that idea and turned it into an idea relating to the bus drivers and things like that, and just seeing as we share the things we're doing, the way that it kind of evolves and shares out to different people. Really cool story. I appreciate that. And for the rest of you, please head over to eduducttape.com and click on the Flipgrid link, or head to flipgrid.com/eduducttape so that you can share your own things things like this so that I could feature the great things you're doing in your classrooms and your schools on the show. Please do visit that site and share there. Finally, let's head over to hashtag EDU Duct Tape Baby Tweeter Land. Meet the new hashtag EDU Duct Tape Tweeps. We smashed in the last fortnight, last 2 weeks, we smashed through the 500 tweeter barrier, which is just amazing to me. 500 different accounts have tweeted using the hashtag EDU Duct Tape, which is just so rad. I take out all of the retweets out of there too. So 500 people have actually tweeted their own words about the show and the strategy that I'm talking about here, which is just so exciting. And these are the new ones from the last 2 weeks at Andali Espinoza, and I apologize if I pronounce any of these incorrectly, at Ann Cosma 723, at Day Catherine M, at EdTech Libby, it's LBBY, I think, at Gippy or Jippy Tweets, at Eileen Winoker, at Jeff Gargas, at Jay Miller's Class, at Joe Turbrack, at Jolie Boucher, at JSN Hubbard, at Mara Malafronte, at Math Dennis NJ, at Mr. Coach K15, at Mr. Michael Etter, at Mrs. Brem Tweets, at Mrs. J Hartman, at Miss Hong ELA or M Shong ELA or Mashong ELA, I don't know, at Peter G Horner, at Sarah E Walker 2, at Savvy_Educator, at Teach Parent Eat, and finally at TNT EdTech. And that does it for Educational Duct Tape episode number 32. I hope that you enjoyed it. I appreciate you staying with us for this long through this whole episode. I hope that you will head over to eduducttape.com/certificate to claim your certificate for the episode. I also hope that if you're interested, you will review the show on Apple Podcasts. It really does help us out. I hope that you will connect with us via the Twitter chat or the Facebook group or any of those different ways to connect and be a part of the Duct Taper community. But most importantly, I hope that you have a wonderful day. And if you're preparing to celebrate a holiday wherever you're at, I hope that you have a wonderful holiday. I hope that you enjoy plenty of time with families. But most importantly, I want you to know that I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here listening. I appreciate what you do as an educator. And I appreciate the time that you're putting forth to do even better for our students. Thank you guys. Have a great fortnight. I'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please visit eduducttape.com to join the discussion, share possible topics, inquire about being a guest, or contact Jake. And remember, duct is spelled with a T, not a quack quack K.